Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the Good Values podcast. My guest this week is an artist who I wasn't actually familiar with, and it was a referral from John Mahoney. There were several artists who he gave me links to speak to, and this is one of those artists. I'm so glad that he did. She's absolutely lovely, and curiously enough, her work reminds me of someone, and it turns out in this episode, she mentions that she has a friend, kind of teacher, a bit of an art mentor, and that was the person. When she said the name, I thought, that's kind of familiar, I'm not sure. And then when I was editing this episode, I researched who that was, and it turns out it's someone who I've been following for quite a while on Instagram. I love their work, and that's who Grace's work reminds me of, as well as another artist who I think I mention in the next conversation that I have with her. But without further ado, this is my conversation with Graceina Samosir. So, would you mind introducing yourself for the audience, please?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Graceina Samosir. Samosir is, interesting fact, an island in Indonesia, which is where my parents are from. It's in Sumatra, and my nickname is Gray. A lot of my friends just call me Gray instead of Grace, because I've had gray hair since I was 10 years old. So I'm rocking that the silver strands right now, and I'm an artist. I practice art. I studied arts. Graduated in 2018. Live in Canada, doing a bunch of different things, experimenting and doing some art instruction. Other than that, I would consider myself to be pretty just a regular person, normal. I enjoy building relationships and forming connections. So I'm very relationship oriented, love my friends. They give me, well, not them necessarily, but relationships in general kind of push me to be better, wanting to be better, wanting to be active in the community. And that's basically me.
Excellent. And how would you
And more
describe
things.
And what, sorry?
That's basically me and more things.
And more things.
Yeah.
How would you describe your style of artwork?
My style of artwork, I don't have a style. I don't think I have a style. I try to stay away from that, although a lot of people do say, oh, you have a distinctive style, or I can tell that it's your work. But
If
I guess
someone
to
asked
answer your
you, yeah, sorry, it's just if someone was to ask you what kind of artwork do you make, how would you describe it to someone who couldn't see it?
right now, it's mostly drawing in a representational manner, figurative, narrative quality. I love illustration. I also like to merge painting and drawing. I don't think there is like a hard barrier between those two. I think they bleed into each other. I like to combine the digital with the analog or traditional, and just do a lot of experimentation. And also, funny enough, right now, I guess when I create something, I have the platform in mind, because I guess we are in this age of like sharing on social media, sharing on this platform. So when I create right now in this stage of my life, I think of, oh, this should look good on the screen this size as well as this size. You know what I mean? So that's embedded in my consciousness when I create, which is like, I guess, it's a comment on like where art has progressed versus like a wall in a gallery.
Absolutely. I mean, similarly, I can now hear when people say things that I'm going to use for promos. When you started saying that, I thought this is going to be such a good promo for your episode, because it's a lovely description of how you consider your approach to artwork and to how you're going to present it, which is a real different consideration. How much has the square format on Instagram influenced how you present certain pieces? Do you crop them, or do you kind of cater them to that format, or does that not factor in at all?
It does it. It's a give and take. And now if we add into that, the algorithm and what, say, Instagram pushes, and if you look at the analytics, you kind of take into the fact that you get more engagement if your work takes up more of the screen, because then there's more viewer attention. So I guess, again, like how I said, like drawing bleeds into painting, but now I guess art and the presentation of it bleeds into marketing and all these analytics and, the digital creator mindset, which is funny. I used to cringe when I was younger. But at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. And I don't think there's any shame in that, because for most of us, that's how we put bread on the table,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you've got a very well presented kind of persona of your artwork and yourself. How long did it take for you to kind of shape that and craft it into something which you're confident is a decent representation of what you're trying to put forward?
I'm still in the process of, I guess, creating my persona, but I would say it has been almost a decade. It started as a side thing, as a project when I was in university. I was taught by, or one of my drawing and painting instructors slash teacher slash mentor, even though he probably cringes at me seeing him as a mentor, but Nicolas Uribe, he was active online, and I saw his work and I saw the amount of engagement and just how much impact he had. And so I decided, hey, like if he's doing it, let me do it as well. So I started to just like post my assignments, my work, my side projects, and that kind of built. I, connected with people, I communicated with people, and it's been a slow progression. So I'm in the camp of like the opposite camp of, I guess, quick virality, getting it within a span of like a year or 2 years, where like only one thing goes viral. So it's like the opposite of TikTok. It's been a slow progression. It wasn't my intention to like really focus on it. It was more of like a diary to document my progress, to be more confident, to not care about what other people think. It's more so about to track what I do. And now it's grown into something that I want to scale and something that I want to eventually monetize. I believe that to make great art, I think someone asked me this, what I believe about, I guess, art in general, or my approach to it, and how to be better, how to become the artist that I want to be. And my thing is, I used to put so much emphasis on art, and art was inextricably linked to my identity. But now, as I've grown older, experienced, life, and more to come, I realized that if we don't put enough emphasis on character, and that's where I'm in now. And I believe that to make great art, and this is so cheesy, but to make great art, live a great life. And by great, I don't mean, just financial success or, accolades or all that, but like work on your life to make great art. And when I say work on your life, or this is a self-prescription, when I say work on my life, I mean work on my character, work on becoming a kinder person, a gentler person, a more compassionate person, a more generous person, work on, building other people up, work on giving, and then you will see the fruits manifest in your life, and from that you can create great art. So not to say that you don't experience pain through it, but even through experiencing when experiencing pain, it's about having a shift in mindset. And it's just, I guess that's where I am in right now. It's like really working on building character, becoming an overall good person. And of course, good is, I don't like the word good, but yeah, good person,
Was there something
morally upright. And that's where, pardon?
Was there something that was a catalyst for that kind of focus on character? Was there something which triggered that to happen?
The catalyst is just, I think it's being humbled by life and having a shift in what I value. And at the end of the day, what do I want? At the end of my life, what do I want? It's about realizing how finite I am and how small I am in the speck of the grander scheme of things, in the timeline of history and universe and where I am. And I just want to be I just want to create loving impact within my community, and that might be just my family or my future family. So that's where it's just life, being humbled. Also, backstory: I immigrated to Canada a few years ago. I would say it's been 6 years almost, or 7 roughly. And I used to travel around with my family a lot. And then I moved here for school, and just being here, and my focus was not, get a studio, get recognized by galleries, be represented, all of that. My focus was, how do I become a permanent resident? So it was very practical, very pragmatic. And through that, I learned about becoming a better person. I had to grind. I had to kind of put my ego down and start my first job, from the bottom, washing dishes, so like, and then building my way up to eventually becoming qualified, eligible to get a permanent residency. And God willing, I'll be qualified to get a citizenship in 1 or 2 years. So it's about like experiencing real life and not romanticizing art, becoming this artist. And then through that, through being grounded, through all of that, through being pruned, I am where I am today, and I hope to be a better person. And there's a celebrity culture within art. It's not, we don't put enough emphasis on character.
No. Well, your experience of emigration, does that feed into your art in any way? Do you kind of feel that channeling any kind of it's like, your cultural background before you emigrated to Canada, is that influenced in your art practice, or how does that work for you?
I guess being an immigrant made me more resilient and more pragmatic, or more practical. How it influenced my art? Can you specify a question again? Like, can you
if I were to let me think, because I suppose I'm trying to relate it to myself. It's difficult because I'm part Italian, but my family moved from England to Wales to have me. So I was born and raised in Wales.
Okay.
And they're all from Manchester, north of England. So culturally, I've been raised by Mancunians, so I don't have much of a Welsh background and culture to me. So when I work locally with people, I don't speak Welsh. I used to when I was in primary school, which is when you're a child in this country, we call it primary. I don't know, is it primary school in Canada or is it something else?
I think it's both. It's primary and elementary, I think.
Elementary, that's right.
We're a mix of both.
Yeah, I thought I had that impression. So yeah, and that's when I spoke a bit of Welsh, not fluently, but I spoke enough to have potential to go for Welsh speaking competitions, which is weird. And but I don't anymore. That all stopped because the area that I live in, there's a lots of English people who move to this part of Wales. So culturally, I have a lot of English influence regarding my art practices. So it's not very, even though that painting which I've done there that's of a place in Wales near to me.
Nice.
Aside from that, a lot of the things that I draw wouldn't be recognised as Welsh. And there's a Welsh school of art which that wouldn't fit into, which is specific style to the school of art. I think, as far as I'm aware, it's palette knife and quite heavy layers and very grey scale. So it's recognisable as Wales. And I don't have that influence. So culturally, do you carry influence from, because I don't know, where did you emigrate from?
So before Canada, I lived in Colombia, and we moved around a lot, pretty frequently. So I'm ethnically, well, I'm originally from Indonesia, but I didn't live my entire life there. I lived most of my life kind of fragmented in different areas. So I was born in West Africa and Nigeria, and then went to elementary school or primary school, I think, in Ukraine. So that's East Europe or Eastern Europe, and then back to Nigeria, West Africa, and then South America. Went to university there, and then to Canada. So kind of like a mixture of different cultures. And but to echo what you said, I just think I bring in some, I don't know. There was a time when I was very fascinated by Batak culture. Batak is my, I guess, ethnic group, because Indonesia is it's an archipelago of so many different smaller nations, or like different ethnic groups, different tribes, you can call it. So I was fascinated with my grandparents' ethnic group, which is Batak. And I think it's like I'm probably so off. I think it's like a mixture of like Indo-China, Austronesian. I don't know fully. I need to be more educated, but I was very fascinated by it. So I kind of put elements of it in my drawings. I was into like the outfits of it. So okay, let's back it up. I like to do a lot of self-portraits because, one, it is very practical. That's how I learn, figurative drawing, portraiture, using myself as a model. But secondly, ever since I was young, I like to, similar to, I guess, Cindy Sherman, the photographer, I like to put myself in different like fantasies or fantastical roles, or not even fantastical, but different alternate roles. I don't know how to, sorry, my English is not on point today, but imagine myself as this, as a ballerina, as an astronaut, as that. So that kind of graduated to me exploring myself as, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. And I draw myself as different characters. And so I would draw myself in like different costumes or different outfits, different cultural outfits and different icons. I think that is an homage, like paying homage to my culture. But other than that, I don't really.
Do you not think that putting yourself in lots of different roles kind of echoes your journey to lots of different countries, from Colombia to, Western Africa to Ukraine to Canada? It's lots of different roles and lots of different positions you've adopted and you've kind of taken on. It does seem to kind of echo into that, multiple persona play that you can engage with. Is that fair to say?
That's a great and insightful point. Thank you for synthesizing all my ramblings and saying that, kind of making that more concise. Yeah, I think that kind of mirrors that. It's my trying to find, this is so cheesy, but trying to find myself, or trying to find what is home, trying to establish a home.
Yeah.
Because home means a lot of different things, and is home where family is home where I've, where I live, where I pay rent, is home where my friends are, is home where I feel where I struggled the most and where I grew and I formed an attachment. So I guess that's kind of in line with that.
Yeah. No, I can completely relate to that. Being that I have a part Italian background, but people don't know that. Just to look at me, they just know that I don't look as white as the normal British person. So I have that weird identity, not crisis, but kind of, I suppose, kind of a quandary to an extent where I'm not nationalistic, so I'm not tribal enough to support a football team. And if, whenever England does play Germany and I don't support football, I support Germany, and not to be a contrarian, but because I think I respect how civilized and dignified Germany has been in recent history. So I think that needs honoring. And I'm not nationalistic enough to say, well, it's the UK, I'll support Britain, England is, I just don't have that sense. And there can be a strange cultural identity which you search for, because I have English parents, but I have a Welsh upbringing kind of as an environment, and then but obviously Italian heritage. So I can completely relate to that feeling of self, where you kind of search for who you are in different lands, basically. Yeah.
Do you speak Italian?
Sadly, no. I lived briefly in Barcelona, so I speak very bad Castilian. But I got by, and I had hilarious moments where I was stopped by some Welsh guys and they were speaking worse Spanish than I did. And I got to do a Spanish accent and then say to them, it's all right, guys, I'm from Wales. And their elation was immeasurable. They were so happy to
That's hilarious.
From Wales. And then I had to obviously give them the bad news that the part of Wales I'm from is pretty much a plot in England. It may as well be, because so many English people here, I think we outnumber the Welsh. But yeah, so that was funny. But I don't speak Italian. I'm hoping to visit, because I've never been to Italy. I'm hoping to go to where my family's from. There's actually a cycling tour of some kind going on at the moment, and they've just been through my grandma's village, which is called San File. My brother sent me video footage of the cyclists going through San File, and there is a house named after my grandma's family there. So that would be nice to visit, and I'd like to know Italian. I know some of the sign language in Italian, like chopping your stomach like that means you're hungry. Things like that, because they use their hands a lot. So
yeah,
a lot of that stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I know that this sign made it to the emoji on iOS. Yeah, it made it to the emoji. Do you it's okay. I completely forgot.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you a bit more of a formal art question then?
Sure.
I'm always curious whether, because someone like you who's got a really professional kind of way of presenting your work and your persona, I'm curious as to, do you set yourself hours? Do you kind of say, I'm in the studio by 10 a.m. or whatever? And what is that? How have you done that for yourself?
I would like to think that I'm very coordinated and I'm very organized and right on time, and everything is time boxed, but I'm also very flexible, and I am juggling different things. So because my priority right now is not necessarily to be the greatest artist in Ottawa, but my priority is to work myself out, to work in whatever industry, so I can keep creating art, scale my art practice, and eventually make it self-sustaining. And then while simultaneously working on my citizenship and establishing a home, establishing a base, forming connections, relationships, friendships. So because I'm not just a one track, like my focus is not just art. Obviously it's a big chunk of my life and what I want to do, but in my pursuit, but there are different things, that's going on. So I guess to answer your question, what my day looks like, if I break it down, Depends. I usually have a few hours for my other jobs, and then when I'm free, I do try to dedicate time, with intentionality, um, to my art. It's become kind of a habit nowadays, so kind of like a second nature thing where just if I don't make marks, I feel restless. So I have to release that by creating marks. And that's how I kind of respond to all the chaos in my life, by creating something. And that it can look like 30 minutes, it can look like 2 hours, and it can even look like 17 hours in a day. It does depend. Although, what I do recommend people who want to pursue this, and obviously I'm in no position to give like full-fledged advice, but because I consider myself also just starting, dedicate a lot of hours intentionally, and to accept the fact that it takes time. You will see the fruits over time. It's not an overnight thing. Again, I've done this for almost 10 years since high school, but I was more intentional in university, midway through. And only now am I seeing some results, and they're very sparse. So putting in that 10,000 hours intentionally is very important. And I do believe that, because I had a time when I actually dedicated myself to drawing. So I decided to draw every day for, I think, about 365 days, 1 year. And not only draw, but to also, and this is where the content creation comes in, post something, share something, like be active every day for 365 days for a year almost. And that's where I saw most of my growth. And obviously it's over time. Most people think that they are the exception. And of course, exceptions happen, virality happens, but most people are the general rule. And the general rule is that it usually takes, from my observation, it usually takes 5 to 10 to sometimes 20 years to really see it, bloom. So, my day looks like working for my boss for different employers at different times. So like I used to work in, I used to co-manage a restaurant, and then I used to also teach children, like homeschool children. I was an art instructor. What else? I was an associate. I was a stylist. Still am, side job. So dedicating time for that, building character, learning sales, learning marketing, learning how to build rapport, learning communication, and then integrating it to my art. Ideally drawing every day. One day I do hope to paint as well, because I haven't painted in a while, since university days, because I don't have the space for that right now. So that will eventually happen, but balancing both and being intentional with both.
Yeah.
I hope that answers. I'm sorry for rambling.
No, not at all. I mean, I was wondering, because I've met some people who have been drawing for almost a decade and don't see improvement, because I think that they don't have that intention to critique and pick apart the weakness in their own artwork. And that's why I'm a big proponent of learn the rules, then break them. Because if you learn the rules,
Yes,
you find where you fall short, and then you're free to break them liberally, because you understand how the rules affect things, and then you can play with that and bend and break things at your will, which I think is the best approach to it. But it's also, aside from practicing art and the kind of difficulty to get into that headspace anyway, how difficult is it for you to set up cameras and then to work around cameras to capture these things in order to share them on social media platforms? How much does that invade the creative space that you have?
if it does invade my creative space, I have to just deal with it and progress, because that's where we're going. And I mean, not right now, the phone is like, it's just like an extension of ourselves. It's another limb, so I might as well document it. And I'm not the best documenter. So because I am, because I draw for myself first and foremost. So I wish I documented more. And I am more intentional about that, but it's difficult for me. It's difficult to, like I set up cameras. I'm not that skilled of a videographer. I make do with what I have, with what I can. Sometimes I ask for help from my friends, and that's where the friendship comes in. That's where, that's where the benefit of making friendships and connections come in. And right now, most of my friends are not even traditional visual artists. They're in different fields. And that's where I get like, different perspective, different richness, different, like now when I look at something, I not only think of like how I feel about it, but how other people might perceive it. Not in a negative way, but because now I have to think of like, oh, they're my audience. And eventually, if I want to sustain my art practice, if I want it to be self-sustaining, I have to think of them as my audience. How do I give them value? How do I teach? How do I share? And that's how we monetize. But going back to your point about, what was your point?
It was, well, for me, I set up cameras and then I have to
Yeah.
go around the camera to draw, because the camera is
Okay.
set up on my desk to look down. I have another camera looking at me, and I do screen recordings and forget about them. And it's everywhere all the time. And it's hard to manage. And I've had other artists tell me to stop filming and just to make art. But I can't now because I have a YouTube channel. So it's a compulsion to capture things, because even if it's not usable, I could put it into a video about failures in art making and failures in production, just to teach and just to try and share things that I think could be valuable and interesting if I were the viewer. So I'm just wondering whether you've got those considerations that are just written into your practice now, whereas it is a lot of thinking that you need to do beforehand. At what point do I photograph this, or do I film this process? And do I need to do a presentation beforehand to say, today I'm going to be doing, and get into that swing of things. So I was just wondering how that feels for you and how much you have to work with that around the actual creation of the artwork.
I guess I do have some systems in place, and that's out of habit. I created a small shop when I was right after I graduated university. So although my main income is not necessarily selling pieces, because that is secondary. I don't want selling pieces to be where I rely financially on, but because that is part of it. So when I create something, I automatically document it, scan it, photograph it, label it, archive it. And then when it's time to drop it, when I feel like it's the right time, I just post it online. Like I put it on my shop, put it on Instagram. Sometimes I also reverse engineer. If I want to make, I don't know, like a funny video or some stories, I have to kind of think, okay, if I want to create this kind of short or this kind of story or a sequence of stories, first thing I need to do is, and this is what I've noticed, that faces retain people's audience, faces retain people's view. So first thing, I'll have to make a video selfie where I talk real quick, or a picture of myself, or something that shows my facial expression. And then I think of like, okay, I think 5 stories right now is enough. Like, I think that is the cap for today. Obviously I experiment. There's a lot of trial and error, a lot of split testing. And then I work, again, I was talking about reverse engineering. So I think of like, at the end of the day, at the end of all of this, I want to create a call to action. I want them to click on this and delve deeper into what I've created. Say it's like my course. So then the second story might be a drawing, like a detailed snapshot of it with links, with arrows, with GIFs, and then call to action. And then the second one is, so it's about like leading up to that. I need purpose and intention. And that's when I had that shift in mind of like, I already have this platform. I've kind of gathered a small community that has seen me grow from, a university student starting to now. Let me take advantage of it, not in an evil, conniving way, but like, how do I make this thrive and also give them something that they want? So when I had that shift, I was like, I can't use social media real estate in a wasteful manner, because we are living in this, attention economy where that's the currency. How do I show them that I appreciate their attention? I give them something of value. I can't just put something that is meaningless. And that's where the intentionality comes in. So that's how I reverse engineer. And then I have the system set in place, but it's still because it's a one person thing. And I do want to know if you are a one person team. But I'm a one person team for now. So I do have like systems in place. I draw. Sometimes I have like a small tripod here. I do things simultaneously. When I'm done, scan it or take a picture of it, archive it, make some like layouts, edits. Is this going to be part of a bigger project? If so, let me crop this part, post it as a snippet. I have a document of like copy, some funny copy, some copies with more, that sound more, not salesy, but more like intentional, like call to action, and then post it. So there is like a habit, like a flow, I guess, a workflow. But that comes out of just habit, and over time that kind of happened. And I do want to grow it because I do like the idea of a one person team, one person business. But I like the appeal of mentoring someone, because I was mentored and I'm still mentored. So I want to maybe give the opportunity for someone to assist me. I love the idea of like employing someone, even though I'm in no position to do that yet. But yeah. How about you?
Well, can I ask one follow-up question,
Yeah,
which is just based on a term that you used, which I don't know what it means, and it could be just a one-word answer, I don't know, but what does split test mean?
Split test. So it's like, it's trying to, for example, it's putting out it's putting out content, but in say two different versions. Say in one story or in one post, I'm going to post this with this wording or with this structure, with this layout, but it's the same idea. And in another post, it's different elements, but the same idea. And I keep some of the variables the same. Say it's the same day. Say it's again the same theme. Maybe it's the same link. And then I see like, does this perform better? Does that perform better? Why? Did I post it at the right time, at the right, on the right day? And so it's kind of like, and that's where the marketing comes in, and which is something I do want to discuss more with other artists. And that is this debate between like generalist versus specialist. And I do think there's so much value in being a specialist, because there's more, we trust someone who's been in one area for like 20 years. We know that they're like a master of it, right? But now with, AI and robots and all that, what if a robot can just replace that specialization, that area of specialization? So there was that debate. But I also believe in like, that the saying like a master, jack of all trades, master of none. But then in this economy, especially as artists, we create, but we also have to market ourselves. We have to tell our stories. So we branch out in different fields. And so I think it's wise to learn marketing and sales and communication, maybe keynote speaking. So, and I know that a lot of like artists kind of cringe at that. I used to do that, especially in art school. It was so like, oh, I'm such an artist. I'm so conceptual. I'm, gallery, blah, blah, blah. But I've kind of veered away from that. My goal is not to be in a gallery. That happens, that's cool. But I'm not super excited if like, oh my gosh, I'm showing in this gallery. Like, sure. Like they're not my middleman anymore. I don't want to rely on them. I don't need a gallery to represent me, even though there is still, I guess, prestige. But I guess artists are already self-claimed contrarians, but I think like you, I'm also more like double contrarian where like I don't subscribe to the art standards and like even like school, like academia, even though I see the value in it, if we have a good experience, if we have a great teacher, if they're generous with their knowledge and their skill, that is so valuable, and not a lot of people have that. So there is value in academia, but I think there's more in today's day and age. Like, just you can go to workshops, you can you don't even need to like have a BFA, MFA, all of that. We can just attend classes. You can connect with people, learn how to say animate on your own. Obviously, it might take longer, but I think you will build other virtues, like other characters, as you do that.
Okay, so that is the episode done. Now, I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought that she was so good at sharing her insights and her process. I think she's very professional with the way that she presents herself and her work. I thought the connection with her and Nicolas Libre was really interesting, and that is whose work hers reminds me of. Now, next time we talk about, well, I'll save it. Next week, there's the second part of our conversation, so tune in for that. If you're not already, then please subscribe to the channel. Leave this video a like if you did enjoy it, and comment down below if you have any questions or comments about the episode. I appreciate you watching. There'll be links in the description to support Graceinas, so please check out that and support her and her artwork. I think she's a fantastic person. I'm really happy to have her on the channel. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.